Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ramadan Mubarak. I pray to Allah that He accepts our fasting, prayers, and good deeds during this month, especially that we're now in the last 10 days. In the beginning of Ramadan, I was talking with a non-Muslim friend of mine about Ramadan and why we fast, and then about Islam in general. So when I started talking to him about it, he replied saying that he had Muslim friends back home where he's from. He's from somewhere in South Asia, and they had told him a lot about Islam. Then he asked me, "Do you know what I like most about Islam?" I was surprised when his answer was that the concept that when you worship more, God becomes more fearful of you. And when I heard that, I was like, Astaghfirullah, man, what are you saying? Now, the first that he was likely referring to was كذلك إنما يخشى الله من عباده العلماء إن الله عزيز غفور. That Allah in Surah Fatir verse 28 says, verily those of His servants who are possessed knowledge fear Allah. Surely Allah is mighty, most forgiving. Now there are a few points that I wanted to highlight from this. The first being the importance of having a strong aqidah. Allah says in Surah Ibrahim, أَلَمْ تَرَ كَيْفَ ضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا كَلِمَةً طَيِّبَةً كَشَجَرَةٍ طَيِّبَةٍ أصلها ثابت وفرعها في السماء تؤتي أكلها كل حين بإذن ربها ويضرب الله الأمثال للناس لعلهم يتذكرون. Do you not see how Allah has set forth a parable of a good word being like a good tree? The good word, according to Ibn Abbas and many Mufassirin, is the kalima of Tawheed, La ilaha illallah, and hence the basis of our aqidah. Now the verse goes on describing how the kalima is like a tree, but the important thing here is the two words asluha thabit that I want to focus on, i.e. it has firm roots. From this verse, the scholars say that our aqidah in its nature has to be strong and on firm grounds. Now if this Muslim friend who was talking to my friend here had really understood Aqidah, he would have known that Allah is Al-Qawi Al-Aziz, Al-Qadir Al-Muqtadir. He is the strong, the Almighty, the All-Able, the Dominant. And that Allah is the Khaliq, and the Creator, i.e. the Creator. And the Creator does not become afraid of His creation. Now I can go on and on about how this statement goes against basically everything we believe in as Muslims. If he had really understood these concepts that I just said, he probably wouldn't have made that statement. The second point that I wanted to point out from this story of mine was the importance of learning Arabic grammar. Now, you might be surprised that when I first heard this verse in Surah Fatir, that I had interpreted in the same way. Now you might ask, why is that? The reason being was that I knew what these individual words meant by themselves, but I didn't really understand how the sentence structure in Arabic really works and fits together. So what I did was I got the meaning of these words, I put them together in the same order that they were in, and now if you do that, here's what you get. If you open your Quran, Surah Fatir again, verse 28, and you get the words word by word, you can translate innama as verily, yakhsha fears, Allah is Allah, and min abadi al-ulama from His knowledgeable slaves. Now from when you put these pieces together, you get the meaning that that my friend had, which was verily Allah fears His knowledgeable slaves. Now astaghfirullah, we know that's not right. Now pay attention to the following statement very carefully, because even many Arabs don't really truly comprehend and understand this. Unlike most other languages, the order of the words in the sentence in Arabic is not necessarily indicative of what the role of each word is in the sentence. Now that's a mouthful, so I'll translate what I'm trying to say here. So for example, in English, if you have a noun, then a verb, then a noun, without using passive tenses or anything else fancy, then the first noun is the subject, the fa'il in Arabic. The second noun is the object, maf'ul, and the verb is a verb. So for example, Muhammad ate an apple. Muhammad, me, is the subject, and the apple is the object. Now that's not always the case in Arabic in the Quran. So you ask, well, how do you know how the sentence is flowing in Arabic, or who's doing what? Now that's a great question. This is usually indicated by the tashkil, the fatha, the dhamma, the kasra, on the last letter of the words in Arabic. Now this usually says what each word is doing, what in what role they're playing in the sentence. Now going back to the first verse, if Allah were afraid of his slaves, which we don't know, we know it's incorrect, then in the verse we would expect that Allah would be the fa'al, i.e. the fa'al or the subject, and in Arabic the subject usually is indicated by a dhamma, that little small waw, on that last letter of the word. But if you go to your Quran, open it up, you see that there's a fatha on that last letter. That fatha is basically saying that that Allah here is not the subject. In fact, no, it is the maf'ul, it is the object here. Hence the meaning that we understood that it's the opposite way. It's that truly the knowledgeable servants are the ones that are afraid of Allah, and not the other way around it, that as my friend had understood it. Now other examples in the Quran where you can sort of misinterpret it is, for example, in Surah Al-Baqarah verse 124, وَإِذِ ابْتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ بِكَلِمَاتٍ فَأَتَمَّهُنَّ. When Allah, basically meaning that when Allah tested Ibrahim, and then the verse goes on. But again, you can make the same mistake where you think that Astaghfirullah, Ibrahim was testing Allah. Another ayah, also Surah Al-Baqarah verse 177, لَيْسَ الْبِرَّ أَن تُوَلُّوا وُجُوهَكُمْ قِبَلَ الْمَشْرِقِ وَالْمَغْرِبِ. Now, from reading this verse, you get the meaning that praying is not righteousness at all. So, a funny aside here, a non-praying Muslim can sort of use this to say, well, praying isn't so important. Allah says, لَيْسَ الْبِرَّ أَن تُوَلُّوا وُجُوهَكُمْ. So, praying isn't important, and I'm good, and as long as my heart is good, qalbi tayyib, then I'm fine, right? Now in fact, the way that the Arabic grammar here works, this verse really means that praying is not all of righteousness. Now another aside, away from the Arabic grammar, if you'd actually sort of continued the verse, it actually continues and explains what righteousness actually is and what the different components of righteousness are. And what do you know? If you read through them, you actually find prayers in there. So if a brother tries to use that verse and tell him, you don't have to go through all this weird Arabic grammar stuff, just tell him, read the end of the verse, and you'll sort of understand, inshallah. Now again, it'll take a long time to go through the i'rab or how the Arabic grammar works for those two verses, but if you're interested, look them up. There are many websites that have that available. Now another disclaimer, it's not always the tashkil that indicates the role of the word in the sentence, especially if plurals are involved. There are many more things to look at in i'rab of the words in Arabic, but just a simplification to cut on time. You don't have to forever hear on the video. Now another question you might ask, well, why are native Arabs falling into this, right? Like, why would a native Arab like myself when I was a kid sort of fall into the same mistake that this non-Arab made? Well, maybe part of it is that the current Arabic dialects really lack the proper use of tashkil. So it makes the language much less robust than it actually is. Because of this, Arabs then have to use things in order so that they can be understood properly. So you can't switch things around and you would still understand the meaning, because tashkil, that's not there anymore because you're not using tashkil properly. Another reason, Allahu Alam, could be that there are many, from my experience, that there are many Arab instructors in the Arab world, and I'm talking about in school here. So you don't get me wrong. If you're in a university for Sharia or what have you, probably it might be different. Actually, it probably is different. But from those instructors that are just in normal grade school, from my experience, that very few are able to communicate why it's important to learn nahw or like Arabic grammar to their students. So very few of them reflect on why it's important to understand language in the Quran. And so it really becomes dry to students. it just becomes memorizing a whole bunch of rules, and you don't really know why you're doing it, and you're studying for the exam, and once the exam is done, you just dump everything out of your brain, and alhamdulillah, it's done, right? Now, unfortunately, many of my fellow classmates hated grammar because of all the rules and stuff and thinking that's involved. Yeah, but قدر الله ما شاء فعل. That's where the world we have it right now, I guess. Now, finalizing this point, learning Arabic grammar isn't obligatory or fard on everybody. For example, like knowing the basics of your faith. But for students of knowledge, of course, it's something that you will have to do, inshallah. So the four main bases for interpreting Quran are the Quran itself, Hadith, sayings of the companions, and last but not least is the Arabic language itself. So if you want to get into tafsir or what have you, understand the Quran more, then you have to have a very firm grasp of the Arabic language. Now, last but not least, my third point here is the importance of understanding that you don't know everything and that you won't know everything. None of us are scholars, and even scholars themselves are very specialized in their fields. So you have one scholar in tafsir, one scholar in fiqh, one another hadith, what have you, right? And then even these fields have little small subfields in subcategories inside them. If there's something that you've heard and you're not sure of, ask somebody who has knowledge in the community, or read up on it yourselves from trusted sources. MashaAllah, we have lots of information at our fingertips now on the internet. You can access 24 hours a day. Now, a funny example of my last point here is back from my childhood. I think we were at our grandma's house, and MashaAllah, we had all of our relatives involved. May Allah have mercy on my grandma. Please make dua for her. Anyway, I think she baked us a cake or something, and one of my cousins took a piece of it before we were supposed to. So we were little kids, so he took a little piece and tasted it and said, "Oh, it was a really good cake, so you'd want to have a little taste of it before you were supposed to." So I saw him, and because I saw him, I was like, "Well, I'm going to tell Grandma because you're not supposed to be doing this." Then he says, "Wait, no, you can't tattle on me." I told him, "Well, why? Why not?" Now in Arabic, tattling sort of means yiftin alayya. That's what we sort of say in Arabic. That's one way of saying it, at least. So he says, well, Allah says in the Quran, وَالْفِتْنَةُ أَشَدُّ مِنَ الْقَتْلِ. Now at the time I didn't really know, how this verse, what the meaning of this exact verse was, or asbab tanzil or anything of that stuff, or asbab al-nuzul, I mean. So I didn't tell on him because of that, because he told me that verse. Now, of course, if you read in Surah Al-Baqarah and try to interpret what the meaning was, the meaning is persecution is more severe than slaughter, and it talks about something totally different. Doesn't mean at all tattling on anybody. Anyway, wrapping up this point, a scholar of Islam said that half of knowledge is saying that you don't know. It's simple as that. If you're not sure of something, don't spread it around. Especially if it's regarding the basis of something that's touching the basis of our belief, like who Allah is, and saying what He's afraid of something, or any of that stuff. Astaghfirullah. So to conclude, I hope my story highlights these 3 points: the importance of having a strong and firm aqidah, the importance of knowing Arabic language and sort of encouraging people to learn it more, inshallah, and last but not least is the criticality of truly understanding that you don't know everything and that you won't know everything, and the importance of asking others if you don't know something. Now, I hope that this video was benefit to all of you, inshallah, and I ask all of us to give us itq from the hellfire in these last 10 days of Ramadan, and again to accept our fasting, prayers, and good deeds. هذا والله أعلم. Allah knows best. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.